The chain was too small for her. It cut into her wrist as she was pulled forward, metal scraping against metal. The alien guards did not care. They never did. To them, she was not a being. She was a number. A failed product. She was a GINTESS. Her kind was created for strength and breeding, built to serve the Empire's needs. But she was different, taller than the rest. Heavier, stronger. Too strong, too massive. From the day she was born, whispers followed her. Too big, too costly, too dangerous now. Those whispers had become her sentence. The slaughter market stretched wide beneath a dark, artificial sky. Bright lights floated above, cold and white, shining down on rows of cages. Inside them were creatures from many worlds. Some cried, some screamed. Some had already gone silent. The giantess stood alone. Her cage was reinforced with thick alloy bars. Not because she had tried to escape, but because the Empire feared what she could do. Even now, weak from hunger and exhaustion, they treated her like a weapon waiting to fire. An announcer's voice echoed through the market. Asset designation: G47. Species: Titan-class breeder. Status: unviable. The words hit her harder than any chain. Well led. She lowered her head. She already knew what came next. Due to excessive mass and resource consumption, Asset G47 is unsuitable for breeding or labor deployment. Approved for protein processing. Approved. For meat around her, buyers clicked and hissed in approval. To them, this was efficient. Logical waste was a crime in the Empire. Mercy was a weakness. The giantess remembered her early days. Training halls, tests, doctors measuring her bones, her strength, her growth rate. At first, they were impressed. Then concerned. Then afraid. When she kept growing past their limits, the smile stopped. They isolated her, reduced her food, increased her restraints, told her she was the problem. Told her the Empire had no place for mistakes. She tried to make herself smaller. She failed. A guard shoved her forward. She stumbled but did not fall. Falling was dangerous. Falling meant punishment. Falling meant proof that she was unstable. She forced herself to stand tall even as shame burned inside her chest. The bidding began. Numbers flashed in the air. Buyers were not interested in her life, only her weight. Muscle density, estimated yield. They discussed her like a broken machine. She will feed many. One buyer said, "Wasteful to kill her so soon." Another replied, "But rules are." Rules. Rules. The Empire loved rules. Rules that decided who lived and who died. Rules that said size was a flaw. That difference was a defect. The giantess stared at the floor. She did not beg. She had learned long ago that begging only made them laughed out inside her. Fear twisted into something quieter. A cold acceptance. This was the end she had been trained for. Serve or be consumed. The announcer raised its voice again. Final bid approaching. Asset G47 will be transferred to processing within one cycle. That was when it happened. Someone was not bidding. Someone was watching. Among the alien buyers stood a single human. He was small compared to the others. Fragile, by market standards, no armor, no rank markings. Just a traveler's coat and eyes that did not look away. The giantess felt it before she saw it. That strange pressure. That feeling of being seen. She lifted her head slowly. Their eyes met. The human did not flinch. He did not smile, did not calculate, did not scan her body for value. He simply looked at her face, at the scars, at the chains cutting into her skin. Something shifted inside her chest. Humans were rare here. They were known as unpredictable, emotional, weak, according to the Empire. Dangerous, according to those who had fought them. The human's jaw tightened. The announcer continued. Unaware? Final bid, the human stepped forward. Gasps spread through the market. A human interfering in an imperial slaughter auction was unheard of. Illegal. The giantess's heart began to race. Not with hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope hurt, but something was coming. The human raised his hand. "I object," he said. The market fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. The announcer paused. "State your claim," it demanded. The human did. "Not look away from the giantess. She is not meat," he said calmly. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. The giantess froze. For the first time in her life, someone had spoken those words, and the empire was about to answer. Silence filled the slaughter market, not the calm kind, but the heavy kind that pressed down on every living thing. The announcer froze. The alien buyers stopped breathing. Even the guards tightened their grip on their weapons. A human had spoken. "I object." Those words echoed longer than they should have. The announcer's eyes shifted, scanning the human from head to toe. No imperial badge, no military escort, no authority. "Human," the announcer said coldly, "this asset is lawfully condemned. State your legal purpose or step back." The human did not move. The giantess watched him, confused. No one had ever stood still for her before. Everyone else rushed to finish things quickly, like she was a problem that needed to be removed. "I am a registered trader," the human replied. His voice was calm but steady. "I have the right to purchase unclaimed assets." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "Unclaimed." One alien hissed. "She is already marked." The human nodded. "Marked for slaughter, not owned." True. Until the final transfer, she belonged to no one. The giantess felt her heart beat harder. She did not understand law, but she understood tone. The human was not afraid. The announcer hesitated. The rules mattered more than pride. "Very well," it said. "Bidding resumes." Human participation approved. The market exploded with noise. Prices jumped instantly. Not because buyers wanted her alive, but because they did not want a human to interfere. Pride and control pushed the numbers higher. The giantess's hands trembled. Why was he doing this? Humans were not known for charity. They were known for survival, for choosing battles carefully. This was not careful. The human raised his bid once. Then again, alien buyers tried to outbid him. Laughing, mocking. Let him waste his credits. He will regret feeding a monster. The human did not answer. Inside the giantess, something painful grew. A feeling she had buried long ago. Hope, she crushed it down. Hope was dangerous. The announcer raised its voice, final bid approaching. 1. Buyer pushed the price higher, far beyond reason. The human paused. For a moment, the giantess thought it was over, that the empire had won again. Then the human activated a private code, the market. System flashed, accepted, silence returned. Final. Bid accepted, the announcer said slowly. Asset G47 is now claimed. The giantess's knees nearly gave out. Claimed, not sold for meat. Claimed guards turned toward the human. Weapons raised, state purpose of acquisition. The announcer demanded. The human looked up at the giantess. Protection, he said. Laughter erupted. Protection? An alien scoffed. From what? From you, the human replied. That was when the empire noticed. A warning symbol appeared in the air. Imperial authority override. This transaction violates biological safety codes. A new voice said, cold. Powerful. The asset is classified as a potential threat. The giantess felt fear slam back into her chest. Of course. The Empire would never let her go so easily. The human exhaled slowly. She has committed no crime, he said. Her only fault is her size. Size creates instability. The imperial voice replied, instability creates rebellion. The human's eyes hardened. Or fear, he said. And fear creates monsters. Guards moved closer to the giantess's cage. One reached for the release trigger, not to free her, up to sedate her. The giantess flinched. The human stepped between them and the cage. That was when everyone understood. This was not a purchase anymore. This was defiance. Human, the imperial voice warned. Step aside. The human did not. She is under my claim, he said. Harm her, and you answer to me. The crowd went silent again. Humans were small, yes. Weak, yes. But when a human chose a line to stand on, history said they did not move easily. The giantess stared down at him. No one had ever stood in front of her before, always behind shields, behind rules. Behind guns, her chains rattled softly as her hands tightened. For the first time, she did not feel like meat. She felt like a reason. The imperial symbol flickered. Very well, the voice said. Escort the human and the asset to temporary holding. This matter is not finished. The guards unlocked the cage. The door opened. The giantess hesitated. The human looked back at her, not with orders, but with patience. You're safe, he said quietly. For now. She took one step forward, and the galaxy began to change. The holding chamber was cold and bright. White lights filled the space, leaving no shadows to hide in. The giantess stood in the center, her wrists still chained, though the links were looser now. The Empire called this temporary safety. To her, it felt like waiting for a storm. The humans stood a few steps away. Guards surrounded them, weapons ready, fingers tense. Every movement was watched, every breath recorded. The Empire did not trust humans. State your intent again, an imperial officer demanded. Clearly, the human did not raise his voice. I claimed her, he said. Legally. That is not the question, the officer replied. Why? The giantess held her breath. No one had ever asked that before. Usually, the reason was simple: work, breeding, or meat. The human looked at her, then back at the officer. Because she is alive, he said. The room fell silent. The officer blinked. That is not a valid category. It is for humans. Murmurs spread among the guards. Humans and their strange values. Always talking about life like it had meaning beyond function. She is classified as unstable, the officer said. Her size alone makes her a threat. The giantess lowered her head. There it was again. Threat. The human stepped closer to her. Not touching, not crossing boundaries, just standing where she could see him. Has she attacked anyone? He asked. No. Has she disobeyed orders? No. Then your fear is not about danger, the human said. It's about control. The officer's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly for someone alone. I am not alone, the human replied. I am human. That word carried weight. The Empire had learned, slowly and painfully, that humans did not need large numbers to cause problems. They needed belief and time. The officer turned away, activating a floating display. Symbols and data filled the air. Your claim has triggered a higher risk review, the officer said. Until it is resolved, the asset remains imperial property. The giantess's chest tightened. Property again. The human clenched his jaw. You approved the claim. We approved a delay, the officer corrected, nothing more. The giantess felt something rise inside her. Not fear, not anger. Tiredness. She had been delayed her whole life. Delayed from purpose. Delayed from freedom. Delayed from death. She spoke before she could stop herself. "I will not fight," she said softly. Every head turned toward her. Her voice was deep, rough from disuse, but clear. "I will not run. I will not hurt anyone. I am tired." The officer studied her like a broken tool that had learned to speak. "Your cooperation does not change your nature." The officer said. The human's voice hardened. "No," he said. "Pure fear does not change hers." A warning alarm chimed. New data streamed in. The officer stiffened. "Imperial Command has issued a notice," it said. "This case is now classified as a potential rebellion trigger." The giantess's eyes widened. Rebellion. She had done nothing, said nothing, and yet her existence was dangerous enough to threaten the Empire. The human laughed softly. "There it is," he said. "You're not afraid of her. You're afraid of what she represents." "Explain," the officer demanded. "A being you cannot place," the human said. "Too big to breed, too smart to ignore, too visible to hide. She makes your system look small." The room felt tighter. The officer raised a hand. Guards aimed their weapons directly at the giantess. "Step back," the human snapped. "Or what?" The officer challenged the human met its gaze. "Or every human port hears about this. Every trade line, every free system, about how the Empire slaughters the innocent and calls it order." The officer hesitated. Information was dangerous. The Empire ruled with control, not trust. The officer lowered its hand slowly. "This is not over," it said. "You will be escorted to a restricted zone. Any attempt to remove the asset will be treated as an act of defiance." "Good," the human replied. "That's exactly what this is." The chains around the giantess's wrists unlocked further. She felt the weight lesson not gone, but lighter as they walked. She leaned down slightly. "Why?" she asked the human quietly. He did not stop walking. "Because someone once told us we were too weak to matter," he said. "We proved them wrong." They reached the transport gate. Imperial ships hovered outside. Watching, the giantess took one step forward, then another. Each step felt like walking away from the life she had been told was all she deserved. Behind them, alarms began to sound. The Empire had noticed, and it was preparing to respond. The transport bay shook as the Imperial ships arrived. Heavy shadows crossed the floor as massive holes locked into place. Red warning lights flashed across the walls. The Empire had not come to talk. It had come to take control. The giantess felt it before anyone spoke. That cold pressure in the air. The feeling of being hunted. She stood near the back of the bay, shoulders tight, hands half free of their chains. The human stood in front of her, calm but alert. He watched the doors, not the ships. That worried her. Human, an imperial voice boomed through the bay. "Step aside." The words echoed, loud and final. The human did not move. "She is under my claim," he said. "You approved it. Approval has been revoked," the voice replied. "The asset is now classified as an imperial threat." The giantess lowered her head. Threat again, always the same word. She remembered the training halls, the tests that never ended. The day they stopped calling her by name and started calling her by code. The doors began to open. Imperial enforcers marched in, armored and silent. Their weapons were not set to stun. The giantess's breath grew heavy. If they fired, this place would become a grave. The human spoke without raising his voice. "If you harm her," he said, "you make this public." The enforcers did not slow the Empire did not fear violence, it feared exposure. "Human," the voice said, "you overestimate your importance." The human shook his head. "No," he said. "You underestimate yours. The giantess looked down at him. He was small. One strike from her could shatter him. And yet he stood between her and an empire. Something broke inside her. "I will go," she said suddenly. The human turned. "What?" He asked. "If I go with them," she continued, "you live. Others live. This ends." The enforcers stopped, surprised. The human's face tightened. "No," he said. "That's what they want." She knelt slowly so her eyes were level with his. "You cannot fight an empire," she said softly. "I have lived inside it. It eats everything." The human met her gaze. "So did we," he said. "Once." The enforcers raised their weapons. Time slowed. The giantess made a choice. She stood. Chains snapped as her full height filled the bay. Metal cracked under her grip, not in rage, but in control. She did not attack. She did not roar. She simply refused to kneel. Gasps filled the bay. The empire had never seen her like this. Not as a weapon, not as meat, but as a being who chose. "She has not attacked," the human said loudly. "She has only stood." The enforcers hesitated. Orders crackled through their combs. The empire's voice returned, colder than before. "This behavior confirms the threat classification." The giantess felt fear again, sharp and real. Then something unexpected happened. The human activated his transmitter. Screens across the bay lit up. Live feed. The market, the chains. The words approved for protein processing replayed in full view. "You like silence," the human said. "Let's see how you feel about witnesses." The imperial voice paused around the bay. Lower-ranking officers shifted uneasily. This was not procedure. "This transmission is illegal." The voice snapped. "So was selling a living being for meat," the human replied. The giantess watched. The screens, seeing herself as the galaxy saw her. A monster. A mistake. But also a victim. Messages began to flood in. Not support. Not anger. Questions. The empire hated questions. "Stand down." The voice ordered. The enforcers lowered their weapons slightly. Not enough. The giantess leaned down again. "If they fire," she whispered to the human, "run." He looked up at her. "If they fire," he said, "stand." The doors behind them opened. A small civilian ship powered up. The human had planned this. "Go," he said. Now she hesitated. "Trust me," he added. She took one step toward the ship. Then alarms screamed. "Stop them." The imperial voice roared. The human shoved a control panel. Smoke filled the bay. Lights went out. The giantess moved, not in panic, in purpose. She shielded the human with her body as they ran, metal burning her skin, weapons firing wildly. They reached the ship, the doors sealed. The engines roared as they lifted off. The giantess looked back at the bay. At the empire, at the life that had almost ended. This was no longer about survival. This was war. The ship drifted in silence. No alarms, no shouting. Just the low hum of the engine and the sound of breathing. The giantess sat on the floor, knees pulled close, careful not to break anything. The ship was not built for someone her size. The human sat across from her, hands steady on the controls. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside the viewport, stars slid past like distant fires. The Empire's ships did not follow. Not yet. The giantess finally broke the silence. "Why did you show them mercy?" she asked. The human glanced at her. "Mercy? You could have hurt them," she said. "You could have let me fight. End it." The human shook his head. "That would only prove them right." She frowned. "Right about what?" "That we are dangerous because we are strong," he said. "We've learned something different." She waited. When humans first reached the stars, he continued, we were small, weak, surrounded by empires that could crush us. If we had fought every time, we would be gone. So you hid? She asked. No, he replied. We remembered. She tilted her head. Remembered what? That life matters, he said. Even when it's inconvenient. The words settled. Deep inside her, her whole life had been about convenience. Feeding systems, meeting quotas, cutting losses. No one had ever called her life important. The ship shuddered slightly. Her hands tightened. Do they hunt us now? She asked. Yes, the human said simply. Eventually? She nodded. She had expected that. I will not run. Forever, she said. I am tired of cages. The human turned fully in his seat. Good, he said. Neither do we. They reached a quiet system. No imperial markers, no patrol routes. Just a dead moon orbiting a dim star. The ship landed. Gently, the giantess stepped outside, feeling real ground beneath her feet for the first time. Not a floor designed to hold her. Real rock, real wind. She closed her eyes. The human watched her carefully. You don't have to stay, he said. I can find a place for you. She opened her eyes. I choose to stay, she said. That word. Again, choose to say, set up a small shelter near the ship. The human worked quickly, practiced. The giantess helped carefully. Learning how to move without breaking things, she was not useless. She was just untrained. As the star dipped low, they sat near the ship. Why does the Empire fear you? She asked suddenly. The human smiled faintly. Because we ask questions, and we remember who they hurt. She looked down at her hands, large, scarred, strong. I can protect you, she said. I know, the human replied. But that's not why I brought you. She looked at him, confused. I brought you because you deserve to live, he said. Not because of what you can do for me. Something inside her chest cracked open. Tears burned her eyes. She did not hide them in the distance. A signal flickered. The human's expression hardened. They found us. He said. Imperial drones dropped from the sky, silent and sharp. Not many. A test force. The giantess stood. No killing. The human said quickly. She nodded. The drones fired. She moved. Not with rage, with care. She stepped between the drones and the human, absorbing blasts meant to kill. She disabled them by tearing off power cores, not crushing bodies. One drone crashed into the dirt. Silence returned. The human stared. You could have destroyed them, he said. I chose not to, she replied. He smiled. That, he said, is why they will lose. Above them, the stars seemed to shift. Messages began spreading across open channels. Footage from the market, from the bay, from the escape. Others were watching now. The Empire had tried to hide her. Instead, it had shown the galaxy its cruelty. The giantess looked up at the sky. What happens next? She asked. The human followed her gaze. Next, he said, the galaxy decides. Far away, imperial councils argued. Borders tightened, fleets moved, and in the silence between stars, something old and dangerous woke up hope. The galaxy was watching now, open channels filled with debate, anger, and disbelief. Footage of the slaughter market spread across free systems and border worlds. The image of a chained giantess, marked for meat, became a symbol the Empire could not erase. The giantess stood on the quiet moon, staring at the stars. They see me, she said. The human nodded. They see the truth that scares the Empire more than any weapon. Imperial forces did not attack again right away. Instead, they spoke. Messages arrived, cold, polite, threatening. Return the asset. Cease unauthorized broadcasts. Submit for inspection. The human ignored them all. The giantess watched him work, planning routes, setting up signals, speaking with distant human stations. He moved with calm purpose, not panic. "You planned this," she said. "I planned for resistance," he replied. "Hope was your part." She did not understand that at first. Then the reports came in. On labor worlds, other large beings were removed from slaughter lists. On breeder planets, inspections paused. Merchants hesitated. The empire slowed. She changed policy. The giantess whispered, "You did." The human corrected. Imperial fleets finally moved, not toward the moon, toward human space. The empire chose pressure over force. Trade routes closed. Supplies halted. Diplomats demanded surrender. The Human Council responded with silence. Then a message went out. Simple, clear, no. Being is property, the empire laughed. Until humans acted. Human ships did not fire first. They rerouted aid. They opened food lines to border worlds cut off by the empire. They shared technology freely. The empire had never fought an enemy like this. The giantess watched the stars shift as alliances formed. Small systems stood up. Not with weapons, but with voices. "Why? Do they follow you?" she asked. "They don't," the human said. "They follow an idea." The empire struck back. A strike team landed on the moon at dawn elite. Silent, the giantess felt them coming. "Stay back," the human said. She shook her head. "I will not hide again." The team advanced. She stepped forward, not as a weapon, as a shield. Blasts struck her body. She staggered, but did not fall. Pain burned through her muscles, but she stayed standing. The human watched in horror. "Stop," he shouted. She raised one massive hand. "No," she said. "Watch." She moved carefully, disarming soldiers without killing them. She crushed weapons, pinned armor, forced surrender. The last soldier dropped to his knees. "You could destroy us," he said. "Why don't you?" She looked down at him. "Because I was taught mercy," she replied. The human felt something tighten in his chest. This was it. This was what the empire could not understand. Strength without cruelty. The empire retreated across the galaxy. The message spread faster than fear. The giantess was not a monster. She was a mirror. Imperial councils fractured. Old leaders were challenged. Younger voices demanded change. "She is too visible," one counselor said. "We cannot erase her." Another replied, "Then we must change." The giantess stood beside the human as a final transmission arrived. Imperial Policy Review initiated. The message read, "Temporary suspension of livestock classifications." It's temporary, but real. The giantess closed her eyes. "I was never weak," she said quietly. "No," the human agreed. "They were just afraid of what you proved." She looked down at him. "What do I do now?" He smiled. "Live," he said, "and let them see." Above them, fleets slowed. Borders opened. Fear lost its grip. The empire had not fallen, but it had cracked, and cracks let light in. The war never came. That was the strangest part. The galaxy waited for fire, for fleets to clash, for worlds to burn. But instead, something quieter happened. Something far more dangerous to an empire built on fear. People began to remember. Across trade lanes and border systems, beings spoke openly for the first time. Stories spread of slaughter markets, of cages, of lives measured only by weight and use. And in every story, there was the same image. A giantess, not raging, not destroying. Standing, the empire tried to contain it. They issued statements. They blamed rogue officials. They promised reviews and reforms. But the truth had already escaped. Truth always did. On the quiet moon, the giantess watched ships pass overhead. Not warships this time. Civilian vessels. Aid transports. Observers, they are still watching me. She said. The human stood beside her, hands behind his back. Yes, he said. But not as a threat. She looked down at him. What am I to them now? He thought for a moment. Proof. He said that the galaxy can choose better. An imperial delegation arrived days later. No weapons, no armor. Just officials and recorders. The giantess felt the old fear stir. They will try to cage me again, she said quietly. They won't, the human replied. Not today. The delegation leader stepped forward, voice measured. You were classified. As property, it said. That classification is under review. The giantess did not respond. Your treatment was inefficient, the official continued. The human raised an eyebrow. Inefficient. He repeated. The official paused, then corrected itself. Wrong? That single word echoed louder than any apology. The leader continued. The Empire will end livestock classifications for sentient beings, effective immediately. Silence followed. The giantess felt her knees weaken, and no temporary. No delay. End. She sat down slowly. One massive hand pressed to the ground. The human exhaled. This does not erase what was done, the official added. But it is a beginning. The giantess finally spoke. I do not want your pity, she said. I want your promise. The official nodded. You have it. When the delegation left, the moon felt lighter. The giantess looked at the sky. So many lives, she said. All like mine. Not anymore, the human replied. She turned to him. You did this. He shook his head. I started it. You finished it. She smiled, a slow and careful expression, like someone learning how, in time. She traveled not as cargo, as a witness. She spoke on stations and worlds, her deep voice calm and clear. She did not shout. She did not accuse. She told the truth about cages, about silence, about being called a mistake. People listened. The empire changed. Slowly. Not enough for some. Too much for others. But it changed. And humans returned to being what they had always been. Annoying, persistent, impossible to ignore. Years later, a child asked the giantess a question. Why did the human help you? She thought for a long time before answering. Because he looked at me, she said. Not my size, not my use. Me. The child nodded, satisfied. On a distant world, a memorial was built. Not of weapons or victories, but of a single moment. A human raising his hand in a slaughter. Market, one choice, one voice, one refusal. The giantess stood before it. Older now, wiser. She placed her hand against the stone. They feared us, she said softly. Who? The human asked, standing beside her. The Empire, she replied. They feared humans because you fight. They feared me because I was big. She looked down at him. They should have feared this instead. This? He asked. She gestured. To the stars. Care, she said. Choice. Mercy. The humans smiled above them. The galaxy moved on. Not perfect, but better. And somewhere, in some dark corner of space, a market closed its doors forever. Because one human said no, and one giantess stood up.